How's that? 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. Okay, if you will please join me in the sanctuary from the hitherlands of the church. I know you've all enjoyed looking around and visiting, and hasn't Founders done some amazing things with their building? Yeah, so they've really done some great things today. So we're going to get started really shortly. Dave, can we have Sharon Henry up on the screen? San Mateo? We do this gathering in 3 different places. We're doing it here. We're doing it at San Mateo, California, up at Peninsula. And then we are having at 5 a.m. in Hawaii, Pastor William Knight out there is going to be joining us. Hi, Sharon. How are you? Wonderful.
Now I'm unmuted. I'm good. Thank you very much.
Excellent. How's Christine doing?
I just got a text from her. She has a new nurse who has figured out the pain medicine, so.
Yay. Sharon is my co-leader in this network, and her spouse had back surgery yesterday, so, sometimes you just got to work through things. Sharon, I appreciate your co-leadership so much in spite of that, and we're going to keep Christine in our prayers for that. So there's a couple of announcements we'd like to make. I'm going to have our host, church staff pastor Tori Topgen, come up. Sharon, at this time, you guys can make your announcements from the host church and any opening like about 5 minutes. And we're going to cut you off on sound while we do ours. There's always some startup stuff, Dave, you can close our...
30-second delay between what you say and what she can hear.
Okay.
So it's a big gap.
Okay.
And that's just the way it's going to be all right.
Got it. So, Sharon, we're going to go do our local announcements for about 5 minutes, and then we'll get back with you.
And actually, for the broadcast folks, just as a reminder, to make sure on your Adobe that you keep the speakers off on your computer, and then we'll unmute you on this end. So, good morning, and welcome to Founders Metropolitan Community Church. I'm Reverend Tori Topchen. I'm one of the staff pastors, and on behalf of our GAP pastor, Reverend Elder Don Eastman, who is actually in Washington, D.C. this weekend, working with our church there, sends his blessings and his love and welcomes you as well. A couple logistical things throughout the day. If you need restrooms, there are 2 in the back of the sanctuary. There's one up the landing and one into the room to the right. And then this afternoon at lunch when you're downstairs, there are restrooms on that level. Also at the break time, there are restrooms off of the courtyard. So feel free to look around. I know during the break we might still have our food pantry going on, so if you would just help be respectful and letting them get their work done for us as well. Other than that, I don't think there's any other things that I need to let you know logistically, but enjoy your day and welcome to Founders.
Thank you, Tori. Tori is also my right hand on the network team for this site. So all the work that you're going to see today, all the putting together, all of the organization and stuff, Tori's been the leader of this team, and I want to thank him for that. So while we're still doing our local announcements, if you are here from a church that needs pastor or pastoral support at any time during the next few months, would you please rise if you're able and let us know where you're from? Andy. Yes. Okay. And now, in response, is there anybody here who's willing to be a pulpit filler to help out a church that might need a speaker or a preacher or some other help? If you are, would you please stand up? Not all at once, guys. Okay. I saw like 4. Did you get them all? All right. So you'll have free reign at breaks and lunch to track folks down. Andy, thank you so much, and thank those of you who are willing to do that. That's certainly a good ministry for everybody. I think that we're going to start with opening prayer. Do we have the Northern California folks online yet? Are they back?
That we have a 12-step meeting that meets in the room behind us, so where we did the registration. So just if during that period of time, if we are on break, to use this side of the church. Once they're out, we have complete reign of the building. Also for lunchtime, everything, food will all be down on our lower level, and everybody will get food down there. Clergy will come back upstairs and we'll meet in that alcove area, and the rest of you will be down with Jude downstairs.
And if you're here for to get some CLEs from the, if you're here to get some continuing education credit, CEUs, I guess you guys call it, huh? Sorry. Those are from the Office of Formation Leadership Development. You need to sign on to the attendance sheet that was at registration desk for the morning session, and then this afternoon you'll need to sign in to get the other 3 hours in the afternoon. So those of you that think you can sneak out at lunch, probably isn't going to work, or you only get 3 hours. And for those that are doing lead, if you're a lead candidate, same situation. There's a sign sheet out there for you to sign in your attendance this morning and then sign in the attendance tonight. This workshop counts as 6 hours. It's 6 hours in spiritual development, I believe, from the LEAD program. And then for clergy, it's 6 hours CEUs for you guys too. So we are really blessed with having several pastors that are awesome at prayer, but I've asked one special one today, Reverend Wanda Floyd, who is our senior pastor at MCC Las Vegas, to open us in prayer. Wanda.
Wow, I feel like I'm American Idol. Should I sing a song or something? Let us pray. God, as we come together now, we just ask you just to be in our presence. As we relax and meditate on what you have for us to say here today, God, we ask you to open up our hearts and our minds and our ears to hear what Brad has to say, that we can take back to our churches and make them better for you. We thank you for getting us all here safely this morning, and we know that we're here because this is where you expect us to be. So we already thank you for what we will receive this day. Cover us with your grace and your mercy. In Christ's name, amen.
If you came in late and you have not registered, or worse yet, you have not paid for your lunch, we're going to do that at 10 o'clock. They'll have a sign-up sheet again. We want you to go do that at the first break, please. Sharon, are we ready to begin? San Mateo in the house. Are you ready to begin? I think they're ready. Okay. So let me introduce our speaker for today.
Hang on 1 second. We need to give them a few more minutes. They're just wrapping up.
Okay, we can give them a few more minutes. What's happening in churches? Success stories today. Clinton.
I need the microphone. Of course, I need to stand up because I have a small voice.
And slight of stature.
Yes, quite. You know, a shrinking violet. A success story. Well, not only are we still there, but after a grueling summer, which tends to be always a case in the desert, and challenges around, you name it, you have the challenges, and a process where we lost many members, major members of our congregation. We had a spate of bereavements from people who are really pivotal. And that sort of thing can really suck life out of a congregation and a church. But I think it's fair to say that because of the pastoral skills, largely the volunteers that are present at the church, and the pastoral skills of the members of the church as well, this has deepened the faith of the congregation. And everything is not only still there, but it's stronger for it. We are in a building that now looks better than it's ever been. This year we managed to refurbish the offices. We had a flood and that was all refurbished. The place looks nice. It is more than open for business. After the summer lull, we're beginning to see things creeping up again. And I would just like to say that the security that comes from people of deep faith volunteering in a congregation and a community cannot be replicated by any form of clergy leadership. It can never do that on its own. It's incapable of it. And I'd like to give thanks for the extraordinary volunteers. About 30%, 33% of the church volunteer in the business of the church in every week, and faithfully so. I'd just like to give a huge thanks to them.
Tori, are they ready? Okay, Beth. Could you? I think he's looking for a good camera angle. So I'm gonna have
I'm Beth Kine from San Diego. Oh, I got to stand up here on the dot. Good morning. I wanted to share about our women's ministry in San Diego and the fact that we have a women's conference coming up next Saturday, that all the women of any gender persuasion are welcome to join us. And it should be a very interesting day. It's going to be all day from 9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. And we'd like to see you there. And is there anybody here from Christ Chapel, Santa Ana? No? Okay, maybe later someone will drift in because I have something for them that's special. I think that's it. $30. And lunch is provided. And so think about having a nice weekend in San Diego.
And I went to the one of them, and they were awesome. There's a lot of strong women of all kinds of theologies and feelings, and it was a wide range of activities to do. So please join them in San Diego, and thank you, Beth, for that announcement. I think we're going to go now. Are we ready? Okay, so I'm very happy to introduce my colleague as network facilitator. We serve churches from the Mississippi to Hawaii in the southwestern U.S. Network facilitator role, and Brad has everybody from the Mississippi east and south of the Mason-Dixon line. So he's been practicing on his accent, and I'll let you find out if he does really well with that southern stuff. But he's a wonderful guy, and we work together a lot. And he is in charge of spiritual growth and education at King of Peace in Pensacola. He's the associate pastor for St. Petersburg, sorry. He's the associate pastor for Congregational Life. But he also has experience in all sizes of churches, and that's one of his skills here today. He has pastored in Orlando and Chattanooga. He was the intern here at MCC Los Angeles back in the day. And we are warmly welcoming him I think that you will be blessed by his presentation today on programming and how we can grow our churches through programming. Reverend Brad Rice.
Thank you. Do I still need to stand on the X? Wait, who was that again? Yeah. Well, good morning, each and every one of you. I have to tell you, as I always throw out, I have a slight twang, if you can't tell. So if by any chance you don't understand me, just tell me to speak slower or speak faster or try to get rid of, oh, thank you, Jesus. Or just get rid of the accent, which I can try not to do. So I want to, I'm sorry. I'll do that. Thank you. Thank you, Reverend. So I want to tell you that I am very grateful to being here. I haven't been back in this part of the country in probably about maybe 4 years or so, and it's always good. I feel like it's homecoming here every time I walk back into this church, and I'm so grateful to be with you today. I always have enjoyed, I've had the opportunity as I was interning at LA to have been to different churches. I was at the Coachella Valley once, I was at Christ Chapel, I've been to San Diego once or twice, and it's just been a great experience. I was at Las Vegas at one point in time, and it's just been a fascinating, fabulous experience. And so I'm very grateful to all of your churches for coming out here and being a part of this. It's very good to see. And thank you so much for inviting me, Jude, and Reverend Tori. It's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to it. So, programming, yay. I have to tell you, oh, there's the screen, fabulous. Amen. So I have to tell you that before I was a clergy, I was in charge of residence life. I was in student affairs. I received my master's in higher education. Oh, I get a technical device.
That'll make your PowerPoint change.
What do I push? The arrows. Oh, this one. Okay, wonderful. I think I'm on it. So thanks. Hallelujah. But I was in residence life, and part of my job was to kind of facilitate my student staff, into developing programming for their students, for their residents. And that was always a joy to see, because I always get to see them come in August, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, most of them first-year students with this anticipation and this perception of what college life is going to be like, and then they get disciplined the day after because they had a little bit too much fun, and then by the end of the year when they leave, they kind of become more developed and more insightful as a result of the educational opportunities that they had. And I also have to give credit to Reverend Elder Dr. Mona West. She was the one that kind of helped me a little bit with kind of nurture my gift of programming, and so I'm here as a result of part of her mentorship and part of her leadership, bringing me on board as being able to teach and facilitate programming for the denomination, and so I'm very grateful for that opportunity. So before we begin, I want us to kind of throw out just some definitions. One of the biggest things that I've seen in my time here has been wondering how to define programming. What is programming? How do we define it? What is the difference between a program and a ministry? And so first of all, the question that I'm going to throw out to y'all, what is a ministry? Just what are some things, when you think of ministry, what do you think about? Bueller?
Bible study.
Bible study, okay. What else for ministry? When you think of ministry, what do you think about?
HopeNet, which is what's going on outside right now.
HopeNet, absolutely. Feeding the poor?
There's clergy and lay leadership involved in carrying on that ministry.
Okay. Ushers and altar, yes, absolutely.
I would just say anything where two or more are gathered in Jesus' name to serve others rather than themselves.
All right.
That would be a ministry in my eyes.
Absolutely. Okay, now I'm going to switch the question up a little bit. What is a program? What is programming? If you could define programming, what would that be?
They're slower on this one.
Steps to achieve ministry. Okay. Ministry with intention. Okay.
Some kind of structured activity that invites people in.
Structured activity. Okay.
Something that feeds and encourages the minister.
I'm thinking planning and goal setting.
Okay, planning and goal setting.
From Northern California, it's discipleship and their homeless meals and their prayer shawl ministry. And also, if anyone is parked in the driveway of our church, we actually need you to move your car.
Oh, Northern California said all that. Whoa! Woo! Anybody? I saw a couple of hands going up over here.
Well, somebody else said Bible study was ministry. I'd say Bible study was programming.
Okay.
So let's kick that around a little bit.
Okay. Reverend Alejandro.
Yes. Anything with intentional teaching and growth.
Okay, teaching and growth. Okay, okay.
Let's put music in there.
Music. I've always believed that music feeds the soul more than words sometimes ever will. Okay, anybody else from? Okay.
We had that delay too, so bear with us.
Any other good thoughts on ministry and programming? Any good definitions? Are they still typing? Okay. So, if you look, am I doing something wrong with the slide? Oh, fabulous. Okay. So, these are not any dictionary definitions. This is just something that I've kind of reflected on and thought about when it comes to defining ministry and programming. So a lot of times they are inclusive of each other, so there can be ministries and programming done at the same time. But at the end of the day, I would think that ministry is how you serve God, humanity, and others through your actions to better your local church community. Service to one another. Programming is how you connect with God, humanity, and others through your spiritual growth and personal enrichment to better your local church community. So just kind of throughout the day as we have our conversation, kind of keep those definitions in mind. They're not, as I said, they're not Merrill's, they're not Webster's dictionary, they're just sample definitions based on my reflections and my thoughts. And so we can move on. Yes?
Can you give examples of that?
I absolutely will. Can you hold that just a little bit? Absolutely. Because we're going to go over that in detail. Yes, sir. So, and we will, and Reverend Dan pointed out, you know, if I can provide examples, and we will, and there will be examples throughout the day to kind of bring out, kind of stretch out that definition just a little bit to really make some practical examples about what those things are. All right, so why develop programming? First of all, is spiritual growth and personal enrichment. We want our congregations to grow, right? We want our congregations to have an intense, spirit-filled worship that connects them to God through others and have this uplifting worship, correct? Yes. I thought so, yes. And I think programming can be a part of that as we continue to develop these wonderful high-quality worship experiences that I know all of you churches are doing, if we continue on that trend with spiritual growth and allowing for them to grow spiritually as well as with a worship experience. They can gain new insight through what they learn with the spiritual growth and personal enrichment. Ownership and engagement. You develop programming for ownership and engaging. It engages and challenges your congregations at times. It allows them to try things on, so to speak. One of my parishioners said, you know, I never thought about seeing the Bible in this way before, and it kind of scared me until I was actually in one of these classes. And it really made sense. I'm opening the Bible. I'm reading it more. It's more than just a paperweight. It's more than just a coffee table decoration, so to speak. It's more than just collecting dust. I'm actually using it because it makes it more tangible to me. Okay, it makes it more user-friendly. So ownership and engaging, and it challenges them. Making connections and building relationships is another reason why you develop programming. I've had these people come to me and say, I had no idea that this person over here existed because I was set over here. And I would see that person, but I didn't know who they were. I didn't know their mama's name. I didn't know anything associated with them. I didn't know who they were. Not only did I know that they lived down the street from me, but we also have similar experiences in our leadership potential. We're able we are engaged in a meditation class together. We're doing yoga together. And those things really kind of help me kind of build those relationships. And now I'm sitting with them in church on Sunday morning. We're providing new opportunities for relationship building. Active discipleship and learning. We want our congregations to not be stuck, correct? We want our congregations always learning, always growing, and so we develop programming to provide an active discipleship, or what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus, or a follower of God, or a follower of the Spirit, or how do we allow for the movement of the Spirit to operate in our lives? So active discipleship and then learning. And then you reach a diverse audience. I think in a world of complex diversity, we want to make sure that we're reaching out as a broad covering as possible. Not just for people who look like me, talk like me, act like me, but also people who may have a different mode of learning, who may have a different idea process, who may have a different religious and theological ideology. People that can come across the strands, because as we get people to be a part of something, we can kind of help them and help us kind of build new competencies that we never thought before possible, okay? And that can only add to the dynamic that we have in our local churches already, again, which I know all of you have, because I've been to most of your churches, and I just love every single one of your churches. Are there any questions so far? Okay, moving right along. Oh, I just love this. It's gone. Oh, there it is, and there's that. Okay, so I'm going to go very quickly over this because most, if not all of us, have gone through this before. So I'm not going to really belabor size theory much, just kind of keep moving. So the first thing, church size theory review, family size up to 50. There's the patriarchs and the matriarchs. They are the definitive characteristics. A pastor-sized church is probably up to 150, where there is the pastor is the spoke and is the hub. He or she serve as the coordination point for their church and of all activities. Program size up to 350, where the distinctive characteristic are the empowered lay leaders, that we're beginning to really move on and have empowered lay leadership in our congregations. And then there's the corporate, or what I call as the mission-sized church, where the distinctive characteristics are multiple mini congregations in different points and different satellites within that one big congregation. Family congregation, a primary expectation is pastoral care. The pastor serves as the family chaplain and serves as a consultant to matriarchs and the patriarchs, but yet continues to provide that appropriate, awesome, dynamic worship experience for people. Are there any size churches that have that kind of up to 50? Any family size churches that we have here? Okay. A couple. I'm sorry? Huh? Hawaii? Okay. Then there's the pastor-centered congregation. The pastor replaces the matriarchs and the patriarchs, and again is the center of all things related to the church. Kind of imagining a wheel, and they're the center spoke there. The pastor delegates authority. The pastor assigns responsibility and tasks to be done, recognizing the accomplishments of their lay leaders, other staff that they may have, the music teams, various other ministries that are going on. The pastor has strong interpersonal skills and an open leadership style. And in order to transition to program size, the pastor has to really kind of give up some of that connection to members so that ministry can continue growing and developing and strengthening. Any program-sized churches here? Or pastor-sized churches here? Numerically? But. Hi, Amy. All right, then the programming size congregation. Ooh, I just love that. That just gives me life. The program congregation, primary emphasis is on planning, recruiting, training, supervising, evaluating. It goes from interpersonal communication and connection to actual development, developing the lay leaders so that they can continue doing the work of the church, okay? Pull together diverse elements in all aspects and secure and keeps the trust of leaders. We're kind of growing from the pastor being the center to really everyone being a center, to everyone engaging their ministries, their strengths, their gifts, their talents to really strengthen the church. Any program-sized churches here? And then finally, corporate, or what I call mission. The pastor becomes a symbol of unity and stability. The pastor becomes this figurehead, this wonderful pastor, preacher, some teacher, mentor, leader. There's the highest quality of worship. There are multiple staffs going on at the same time. There's not just one senior pastor. There's also the pastor of congregational life. There's also a pastor of congregational care. There's also the music director. There's also these other people that are around to really make worship and programming and ministry happen in the congregation. And in my opinion, they're the kind of church that has that big energy that when you see them, there's just an electricity. Everything is just alive and engaging. And any corporate mission-sized churches here? No, I didn't think so. Okay, I wasn't sure. I was not sure. Now, this is something that Reverend Mona has enlightened me about, and as I continue to grow in my leadership here in the denomination, is that most of the program in corporate-sized churches had inadequate programming, that they may numerically be at a certain size, and they may numerically be at a certain level, but the programming does not fit the needs and the size of the church. The family and pastor-sized churches had inadequate programming. Not a single program-sized church featured programs regularly on the homepage of their website, although I do believe that is changing as we continue to grow. What's that? Well, I'm not mentioning names, but I'm just saying. Only 3 churches were adequately staffed, either paid or volunteer for programming. And then facilities were purchased with worship space in mind, not programming. The more programming, in my opinion, the more high-quality programming we offer in our congregations, the more our churches are going to grow and develop. I think worship is the entry point, and you get people in worship, and you provide that outstanding, dynamic, high-quality worship that you continue to develop in your churches, and you keep them there through developing high-quality programming to engage people in their own spiritual growth and formation. So, a little bit more about what programming is. Any questions so far? Yes, ma'am. They should already be on. I think is it a Google Drive? Is it a Google Doc? Am I hearing that correct?
If you registered.
Oh.
If you registered, you got them.
Oh.
There's a link on the registration site then we can put that up on the Facebook page.
Right.
We'll post everything on the network page.
Okay.
So I'll just take less notes, just listen to you. Wonderful.
My little sing-songy accent. Yes, praise the Lord. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about what programming is. We always throw out the term inclusive, right, in our churches. In MCCs, inclusive is just much part of our language as the word Jesus, Spirit, Bible, you name it, Christianity, whatever. It's part of our language. And it does it, and it means the exact same thing that we mean in worship. Everyone is welcome and part of the table. And in programming is the exact same thing. We have to make sure that we're providing high quality programming where everyone is served and included as a part of the spiritual growth, making sure that there is something for everybody. Programming is balanced. There has to be some kind of balance. I know that I love a good Bible study. However, I also want to learn crocheting. That we have a class for that. We have a class for crocheting. Somebody may want to not learn any of those two, but they want to develop their leadership skills. That's why we have servant leadership programs available to kind of develop, to kind of make sure that people are balanced in what they have and what they want to offer. Okay? So we got to make sure a good balance. How many people have been to a Bible study that has started since the days of Noah? Raise your hand. We have all been a part of a Bible study that Noah started on the ark before the floods receded. And it has just continued on through eternity. And you have two committed people who always show up at that Bible study, and they are ready to discuss Acts chapter 17, verse 11. They've been discussing it for 2 months. One of the things that I strongly encourage that when we develop high quality programming, we have specific start and stop dates. Okay? That we don't necessarily have a Bible study on Acts chapter 17, verse 11. I don't even know what that verse says, but Acts chapter 17, verse 11 for 2 months. Because people want to get excited about it. And if you say it will start on Monday and it will end 4 weeks from now, then people will get engaged. And if they miss out, they'll say, well, can you offer it again? Can you do it again? Can you teach it again? I missed the leadership training that we had on servant leadership. When are you going to do it again? Because I want to be a part of it. You entice people. Because if they say that, oh, we're doing servant leadership for now until through 2028, starting Monday, then people say, oh, I'll miss this one. I can miss this one. I can miss this one. And the next thing you know, they just fall apart. And let's just be honest. Life happens. We're busy people. We're not, the church used to be the centerpiece of all life in towns and cities, but that's not true anymore. And so the reality is that people have busy lives. And so they don't necessarily want to go to one thing for the next 20 weeks. But they will definitely commit to one that is only 3 or 4 weeks long. Okay. Creative and fun. Programming is creative and fun. How many times have we been to something that was just a complete, oh my God. We've been here for an hour and a half and it's only been 5 minutes. How many of y'all have been to something like that? How many of y'all have taught something like that? Creative and fun, you entice people, okay? For instance, and I'll get to some of the potlucks in a minute, because potlucks are a definite part of, actually we'll talk about them now while we're on it. Potlucks are a great way to get people invited and enticed into the daily programming of your church. Potlucks are a phenomenal way, and I love to eat. Okay, some of you know that I can put away some food very quickly. Reverend Onetta is nodding in agreement, absolutely. Potlucks are a great way to get people in because there's no stress, no mess. Very simple. You bring your Swedish meatballs and I'll bring taco salad or whatever. But to even kick it up a notch, there are websites out there, and we'll get to resources in a minute, that will tell you what months certain months are. Like October is National Apple Month. Did y'all know that? I didn't know it. But at the end of October, we're going to have an apple a day potluck where every food that we bring revolves around apples. Pork chops and apples and apple salad and, you name it, apples. Apples are the centerpiece. For you people who eat meat, September's National Cheeseburger Month. Who knew? So you have National Cheeseburger Month, and we have a cheeseburger potluck. And for those of you who don't identify as carnivores, that we do make sure, being inclusive, that we have vegan, vegetarian options that are available to make sure that all people are welcome. Potlucks are a great way to get the people invited and involved with the life of the church outside Sunday worship. Programming is well planned. Okay, make sure that you have a plan about what you are doing, what is going on, because people want to be involved in. If you're doing a 4-week study on Philippians, then you will have, okay, first night we're doing chapter 1, second night we're doing chapter 2, third night we're doing chapter 3, fourth night we're doing chapter 4 to wrap up. Easy. And then you look at what you need to do for resources, which we'll get to in a minute later on in our conversation today. But people want to make sure that there is a planning involved process, okay? Don't do it haphazardly, because, we're also busy churches, am I right? And at any given point, there's a food ministry going on. There's an AA group meeting. You need to make sure everything from the actual development of the class itself or the course all the way through to room assignments and where's this thing going to be and who are going to be your volunteers who's going to make sure this happens. Well planned. Programming is diverse, making sure that we have different offerings for different people. Going back to, again, I'm not necessarily one that would want to talk about Acts 17:11 for the next 5 weeks, but yet I may want to be involved in a spiritual development class on yoga. Or I may want to talk about Buddhism and its comparison and comparative theology with Christianity. Okay. Programming is also passive and ongoing. Programming does not have to be content specific or potluck specific. Programming can be passive. An example, T-Door last year during the Trans Day of Remembrance, we had an entire month dedicated to trans-related programming. We had some content-specific stuff with our trans ministry, but we also had a huge bulletin board in our social hall that we put the trans flag and its colors and what it means and why the trans flag was decided the way it is and what are some things associated with trans lives because they do matter. So what are we teaching? What are we talking about? Passive programming that still does not have anything content specific, and you're not doing everything in a 4-week session, but you're also educating and informing and enlightening people as the programs go on. And then ongoing programs, I know I said don't have Bible studies from here until Kingdom Come. Ongoing is different. Ongoing programs, I'm looking at more affinity groups. Okay, programs that reach a certain demographic or come together around a certain purpose. We have a canasta crew that meet every Monday and Tuesday at the church, and what do? They do nothing but play canasta. I don't even know what that card game is. I know spades, but that's a whole different opal. Okay, we have a group called the Daytimers who do all of their programming on a certain day at 11 o'clock on Wednesday mornings. And they come together because that's programming during the day for them. And there are people that can't come during the night because they can't drive or various other reasons, but they come during the day. We also have a yoga every week. We have a certified yoga instructor. She comes twice a week. And some of those are affinity groups, the ongoing programs that come together around a certain purpose. Now let's talk about what it probably isn't. Again, good, high-quality programming probably isn't exclusive. You do not want to exclude anybody for any particular reason, okay? Number 2, programming probably isn't only limited to Bible study. Again, Bible studies are good. Please make sure that Bible studies are not the only thing, because then I will have to ask, are you reaching the maximum potential of your congregation? Are you reaching everybody? Sister Eula May and Uncle Harold, real family members, by the way, love a good Bible study, but they're in a church of 45 people. Where are the other 43 folk? What are they doing? You know, how can we involve them? So I would not just limit it to a Bible study. Okay, fundraising. It probably isn't fundraising. We want to make sure that fundraising is an active part of the operating ministry of the church. We want to be a little careful if we're charging $5 here, $10 there, $5 for this potluck, $10 for this opportunity. Oh, if, may I pick on you for a little bit? If Reverend Dan wants to teach a class on, give me a topic. Sexuality, fabulous. We'll need to pay him $15 to give to the church. We want to be careful that we're not nickel and diming our congregation when it comes to programming. Okay? Make sure that programming has a budget in your operating budget. Yes, sir.
I don't know if you're going to address this later, but I noticed a trend in many churches that they're charging for classes, and it feels like that adds validity to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For 6 weeks for $20. What are your thoughts on that? Seems like it's a trend.
The question was asked about, the trend is some classes are charging. And so what are my thoughts on that? Because the class does add validity, and I honor that. I do know, and I will say when it comes to this, that the caveat for me is there are classes that will have some inherent costs. Anything around the mosaics, any kind of art supplies. Books are not cheap nowadays, but you want people to have a book. So there will be some costs. I want us to make sure that we're not charging just to be charging, but we're charging for, you're charging your $10 on your sexuality class because the book costs $9.95 or something to that effect. And we want to be careful by not necessarily saying, please come to the potluck, it's only $20. Well, what does the $20 go toward? Does it go toward the meal? Does it go to the operating funds? Because I just put my $25 in with the operating budget when the money came around for the tithes and offering and worship. So I think there's a difference there. So thank you for pointing that out, Reverend Dan. There are some classes that we do charge. Crocheting is a class that we offer at King of Peace. We have to charge $8 for that because the crocheting needles cost money. The fabric, yarn costs money. So that's a very good point. I don't think it's a problem charging for materials. I think where it runs into an issue is when we begin charging to contribute to the operating budget of the church. That's when you kind of want to say, let's think about why we're charging. Because again, I don't want the congregation to be nickel and dimed and then not show up because here we go again, asking for another $10 when I just dropped 20 in the plate. Does that make sense? Okay. But yeah, that's a very, very good question. Programming is probably not restrictive to one mode of learning. Who loves a good lecture? Where are my kinesthetic folks and who need to move around with the movement of the Spirit? You're probably sitting, can we just hurry? Can you just shut up right now? I need to run around the church for a little bit. Reverend Elder Larry knows what I'm talking about, yes. We don't want to be restricted to one mode of learning because there are different learning strategies. Are there any teachers in here? Okay, is that correct? You don't want to just teach to one style of learning. You want to be as multi-dimensional as possible. Okay, so you want to have people who are engaged with the good lecture style on what the Gospel of John is talking about, and yet you may also want to have people painting and doing an art project, supporting, the local arts or something. You may want to have some kind of hearing, another auditory lesson, watching a video and talking about it and moving around or something like that. So don't just restrict it to one mode of learning. And my final one, programming probably isn't limited to the experience and teaching of the pastoral leadership. Pastors, you do not have to feel like you can carry programming all by yourself. Amen? Lay leaders, pastors do not have to carry programming all by themselves. You all have gifts too. Use them. When it comes to family-sized churches, the pastor may be the main programmer. True, granted, yes. Okay, but once you begin developing and growing, pastors do not have to be the only people on programming. We have knowledge, but so do you as the lay leaders. Okay, I can't. Again, going back to crocheting, I can't eat with chopsticks, much less do a crochet needle. So I won't be able to teach crocheting, but someone in my congregation does, and they will be glad to teach it. Okay, that's how your programming will grow, involving not just the pastors, also including the lay leaders as well. Everyone has gifts. Make sure you use them. Again, talking about balanced programming with excellence is all about achieving balance between the different program options on offerings. Again, we kind of developed this program at King of Peace in our local congregation, that these 5 areas mainly, kind of, can we put that slide back up? Thanks. That all these 5 areas kind of cover the gamut around people's and arouse people's interests and their spiritual gifts and their spirituality and what they're wanting to do. We have things on biblical literacy, which can range from anything from scripture study, which is our Bible study, which we offer twice a month, to anything on the Bible 101, Bible and homosexuality. Leadership courses. Good leadership courses will involve Servant Leadership 101, spiritual location and spiritual types. Pieces on spiritual disciplines that are not necessarily biblical or Christian in nature. We're now doing a comparative religion thing on Living Buddha, Living Christ, and so we had a 3-week study on that book, and now we're going to come back and talk about Buddhism 101 as part of a spiritual development piece. We also have courses on yoga. We also have courses on meditation and things like that. Personal enrichment, things that are not necessarily spiritual in nature, but people just want to have fun, like people want to do crocheting. We have a watercolor class occasionally. We have things on ASL, who wants to do sign language interpretation. Even a history of your own local church will be part of that spiritual development or that personal enrichment. And then socials. Why? Because they're just fun. Who doesn't want to come to an apple potluck, an apple a day potluck? Things like that. Because socials are just a good way to build relationships in community with other congregations. Cool? Okay. So, here's what we're doing. We're now going to be kinesthetic learners. And we're going to move around. Oh, no, it's not going to be that detailed, I promise. Trust. So if you want to get with your congregation, if you have a larger representation, you may want to split up into 2 different groups, or you may just keep it at 1. I'm leaving that totally up to you. This is a self-experiential exercise. Based on the things that we have just talked about.
Brad, you also need to give the instructions so San Mateo does the same thing.
I'm sorry. Okay. All right, San Mateo in Hawaii, I want you to be a part of this as well. Thank you. I forget. I apologize. I want you to divide up into your local congregations. And then in your local congregations, I want you to flesh out these two things. Indicate what you believe is your church size based on numbers, based on what happens in your local congregation. Indicate your church size and list the programs of your church for the last 2 years. Again, going back to the definition of what programming is and what it probably isn't. So just kind of spend some time in your local congregation talking about those two questions, and then we'll come back in about, let's say, 5 minutes.
I'm so sorry for stepping out on you.
Oh, that's fine. I hope everything's
My car ended up in the shop.
I hope everything's okay.
Oh, everything's great.
Good, good.
I'm glad that I'm going to be able to make it home for only $80.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I have this here presentation on the iPad. I'm going to give it to you so that you're not
Doing one of that thing?
All you
Okay.
have to do is
Just tap it. Thank you. Because I have it here. I have it printed out here, but but then I also kind of am curious because I'm like, It is football season. We got a 2-minute warning. 2-minute warning. Thirty seconds remain. Okay, thank you. All right, as we are gathering ourselves back to the larger group. Okay, we'll figure it out. As we gather ourselves back, I am interested You can stay there if you would like in your church, in your congregations. That's fine. Feel the love of each other as you share with each other the love that is your local congregation. Can you feel? I'm sorry, we won't go there. Okay, so just to make sure that I'm giving everybody enough ample opportunity, I want to make sure that the San Mateo, Northern California, and Hawaii churches also have an opportunity to respond as well. And so I invite any congregation, is there a certain thing that you would like to lift up to the larger group? Talking about size and some of the things that you are doing as far as programs in your local congregation. Is there anybody that would like to do that? You will need to come up here so the camera can get you, which means I will.
Please come on up.
You're the next contestant. Lay leadership. Thank you, Reverend Clinton.
Hi, I'm Joe from MCC of the Coachella Valley. Who's that fat man? Oh my God.
It's not you, I promise. It's not
me?
you. It's
Oh,
not
okay.
you.
My goodness, he is big. Anyway, MCC of the Coachella Valley. We're pastoral sized. And there's 11 of us here today, so it was quite a collection. So 11 memories came up with a laundry list. So I'll share the list and speak to one in particular I thought was probably the most interesting, even though I didn't attend it, sadly. I wanted to and just couldn't seem to get my act together. Okay, got to get them to repeat it. Good point. Bible study, Friday Night Live, music ministry, ice cream socials, yard sales, music bingo, tea and sympathy, membership classes, toy drives, food drives, We have a Lent services that are a soup supper, Advent services, spiritual education. We have board retreats, church retreats. We're going to have a soap making demonstration, and they're trying to talk my partner into doing a cooking demonstration. That's going to happen, I think. I'm looking at him. He's saying no. Spiritual journaling and spiritual wheel. And I thought the spiritual journaling one sounded kind of fun and interesting. And our presenter is actually here today. I'm not quite sure what she did, but it sounded very interesting. So you need to repeat. Anyway, that's us, MCC of the Coachella Valley.
Thank you. There were some good stuff. I think the spiritual journaling, spiritual autobiography, the ice cream socials, the music bingo, silk making, like soap. Another fabulous. That's fantastic. Thank you, MCC of the Coachella Valley. Okay, we're going to Northern California.
There we go. That's a stop. You won't hear yourself but stop.
Good. We have a history of being a farm/corporate. We have a history of being a farm/corporate.
Turn that all the way out. The computer.
Okay, we're good now. We have a history of being a program, almost corporate church, and discovered in our conversation that we still behave that way, even though we are actually kind of three family churches, a morning service, an evening service, and a Wednesday night service, and a pastor-sized church, because that's what the numbers say. And it's interesting to see how our programming bounces between those three, one of them nostalgic and the other two realities of what we do. Assuming that there's enough people to do corporate-sized or program-sized church, but letting the family-side reality of the three different congregations at three different times will come up and adjust our programming to that. We also had a great discussion on whether what we were doing were ministries or programs, things like lunch bags, backpacks for the school program. Was that a program or was that a ministry? Did you have that together? Great conversation.
Thank you, Northern California. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Hawaii would like to speak. Reverend William?
Hawaii would like to speak. Reverend William? Hawaii would like to speak. Reverend William?
Hi, everybody.
Hawaii would like to speak.
Hi.
Reverend William? Hi, everybody. Hawaii would like to speak.
As you may know,
Hi, everybody. Hawaii would like to speak.
we're a family-sized church. But even so, we managed to have a fellowship Sunday, the first Sunday of every month. We put together an entry for the annual Pahoa Christmas Parade. And for Thanksgiving, we put mute my speaker. Okay. Mute my speaker. Okay. My speaker is now muted. Is that working? Is that better? All right. So as I mentioned, we have a monthly fellowship that happens after service on Sunday. We participated in the network gathering last year, which was very successful. We had a group of people who got together to put together Christmas wreaths, some of which they sold, but some of which they gave away. And we had some yard sales, which we invited people from the community to participate in. And once again, we've done the Puna Gay Pride Festival and Gay Pride Parade. So that's pretty much what we're doing. And do I turn my speakers back on now, or what?
William. Is there anybody else that would like to respond?
Okay. Thanks, Jude. I'm from San Diego, for those of you who forgot. And I think by the numbers, we're kind of a program church, but we're more functionally a pastoral type church. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, maybe I should hold this closer. Functionally, we're more of a pastoral church, but by the numbers, we're a program church. And so we kind of coined it as staffed to decline. So we have a lot of programs, but not a lot of staff. We've got lots of volunteers. We've got many, many programs. We have an adult education program. We have a choir. We have a children's ministry. We have a hospitality team that includes greeting and ushering and snacks, that kind of thing between services. We have a ministry group called Dinner at 6:30, where once a month a group of us goes out to dinner. And that's just a lot of fun. And what's neat is people at the restaurants see how much fun we're having and the diversity of the people. And they say, "Who are you people?" And we'll say, "Oh, we're at church together." And they'll say, "What kind of church is this?" So that's kind of neat. We have a Thursday night spiritual group that meets every Thursday. We have a transgender spiritual connection. We have Women of Worth that we talked about this morning. We have an usher team. We have a jail ministry. We have a multimedia team that does this sort of thing. We have I can't read my own handwriting. We have an uptown community service center that we volunteer at. We have altar team. We have communion servers, musicians that play instruments. We have scripture readers. We also have a landscaping team that comes and does yard work. We have a Feed My Sheep program that's kind of like your food pantry here. And then we have community outreach events like Pride and AIDS Walk and Trunk and Treat. And then we have a seniors ministry.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
that's us.
The dinner at 6:30 is definitely a wonderful, wonderful program, because I think that incorporates the social and it gets people out involved with the community. And what a good evangelism. You know, what kind of church are you that you just have all this fun? And the Women of Worth you mentioned is a good affinity group. There are several good programs there. We're going back to Northern Cali.
Wait, now you're on. Say that again. Okay. We're from Northern California. Couldn't quite distinguish them, so we threw them all together. We have a craft group that meets every night, Wednesday night. We have board training, Bible study twice now. We had a hoarding workshop. We had an employment workshop when employment was over 10% in Sonoma County. We put together from last year's get-together a spiritual type workshop. We have choir retreats every year that we've had choir. We have a music program. We would like to have a cooking group. We have a church garden, which is very soon to be transferred from where it is over to the senior center in Guerneville, which brings it a little closer. And we have yard sales. We have toy drives for Christmas, school drives for just getting into school, the children. We have a lot of homeless children in Guerneville and families. And we have a clothing drive.
Turn this one off.
And that is MCCRE.
All right, thank you, Northern California. Anybody else? Las Vegas.
Every time I come up here, I feel like I got to sing something. Man. MCC Las Vegas, we're in transition. I'm an interim pastor there, so I've been there since May of last year. And we've done Book of James, resume building group, CLM, craft groups, game nights, life lessons, grief and loss, homosexuality, and Bible offsite at the Gay Lesbian Center there.
Okay.
Which we thought we're doing it again this year in October. Financial workshop, biblical stewardship, stress study, couples workshop, leadership training, Knit a Square. We did a suit drive with the Men's Warehouse, school supplies, movie nights, and panty raid.
A what?
Panty raid. Panty raid. For the month of May, we partner with Safe Nest, which is a domestic violence shelter in Las Vegas for women and their children. And so for the month of May, everybody brought in clean underwear for women and children. New. Yeah, we had this have some clean underwear that we had to throw away. Thank you, babe. New underwear for children and mothers. So it's really cool.
Thank
Yeah.
you. What size church are you?
We are a pastor size transition to program size.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Reverend. We'll take maybe one more because I'm getting a little antsy. So is there is LA Founders?
Do I have to? I'm Larry Rodriguez. This is from Founders.
Stand on the X, darling. Right here.
On the X.
Stand on the X. Thank you so much.
I'm Larry Rodriguez from Founders MCC, and size-wise, we're a program church. Program church, but functionally, like San Diego, we're really a pastoral-sized church. And we had a lively discussion of the difference between ministries and programs, and so we came up with this list. For programs, we have CLM, Creating Life That Matters. Our Bible study, both in English and in Spanish, and they're more than just run-the-mill kind of Bible studies, but we'll call them that. We have several affinity groups, the Transformation Unity, Azania, men's group, and the women's group, and then we have spiritual locations and spiritual intelligence. That's our two different ones. Hope Group, which is a support group for people dealing with mental health issues. A karaoke night, which is fun. We have various field trips. The last one was to the Dead Sea Scroll exhibit at the California Science Museum. Something that's going on right now today is the Financial Peace University movie nights, and the church does not organize these themselves, but we supply the space for more than 20 12-step programs that meet every week. Pardon me? Oh yes, Bayanihan. We are left with, which is a Filipino ministry group.
Fantastic.
Pardon me? Oh, and Power Support. Yeah, those weren't on this list, though.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, LA. Okay, I'm sensing some antsiness. I'm going to, how about a 2-function break, which is, in my opinion, a 10-minute break. So be back around, you know what, let's just go ahead and make it 15. Does 15 work?
We will have a special
let's say
announcement
10.
when you come back.
Let's say 10, and then we have a special announcement. So 10 minutes, 10:35.
If you haven't registered or paid for lunch, please check in with the registration shows.
I think so. You know, it's good. Some things never change.
We're about to reconvene, so if you would take your seats, please.
And we are making our way back into the sanctuary.
Roll up, roll up. Would you like to join me? Yeah. Look, everyone's here. There's no leg slapping that has to go on. Yeah. There are a few missing, but you know, as I come in, I'll fix them with a gimlet glaze. There's always a combination in the church and the denomination, the local church and everything else, in the breathing in and the breathing out that goes on, in the good news and the bad news and the challenges and the joys. Well, we've had an awful lot of the exciting stuff this year. For example, you know, at the last General Conference, the Office of Formation, Darlene, had basically set a goal of 50 church plants across the world before the next General Conference. Because we know we're up to emerging ministries, we're up to 34 now. It was one of those goals which I thought was ludicrous, and yeah, a round of applause, I think, for Reverend Darlene in absentia and all those who have been involved in church planting and also in interim ministries. It's just that we have an interim pastor next to me, so it's one of those things that's uppermost in my mind. So we're looking at 34 out of 50. Wonderful, excellent. But we are also having a common experience of declining church revenues, especially in the US. We looked recently at the Southern Baptist Conference having to cut something like 20% of their staffing because of that problem, especially in their overseas ministries. And that seems to give a lie to the idea that all denominations were declining in income except the evangelical wing. No, it seems it's pretty much across the board. That being said, the staff cuts that Nancy announced yesterday in the denomination, harrowing as the process is, still represent a move towards right-sizing for our denomination in terms of employment. And we were still, after these cuts, slightly over-represented in terms of denominational staffing. I just wanted to pass quickly over to Onetta, just to put in a couple of points.
Right. So again, as you know, we also serve as governing board members of the denomination. And just to put in perspective, that part of this transition, particularly as we go to General Conference 2016, and preparing the way and creating and having resources available for the new moderator who will be elected in July of 2016. And just reflecting, obviously, as he said, the assessments that have come in, we have right-sized the staff. It's always a challenging moment, but at the same time, just like other denominations are doing, there had to be some difficult decisions. So the encouragement is that we continue to be a movement. We continue as local churches, that I know you experience your own challenges. And again, that we do know that obviously, sometimes when you're having challenges, it affects us at the denominational level. So we continue to look forward, continue to support our assessments, and ways in which you can volunteer when you hear about it, the denomination is always a plus. So just wanted to see if there are any questions For those who may have read, obviously, the communication that was released yesterday to leaders as well as churches, if you had any brief questions, just keep us in prayer. Keep us in prayer. That's really what's important. Do you have any questions? We'll take one or two very briefly and then move on to... Right, yeah. There was a communication that has the governing board address, but I wanted, and he wanted to, and Moderator Nancy said we could take a moment to address that in this meeting without shifting what this primary purpose is. Right, so the question was basically asking the positions that were reduced, were the persons, did they have other jobs? Was this their primary income? Was this their primary position? It's a combination in some cases of both. There are some persons who have many of our people supplement, if you really know many part-time, there's no such thing as a part-time pastor. They may be paid part-time, but they also have to supplement their income. So it's a combination of both. And respectfully, we hope by the notice and you saw a staggered kind of a schedule of shift that they have enough notice to make other preparations. Okay? So thank you. Is there anything else?
Just one thing. Question.
If I could share a quick testimony regarding the work MCC is doing on the world. Would that be okay? For 2 minutes at most.
Not at this very moment, no. I would just close up and say that I spoke to Nancy this morning and asked what she wanted to bring, and she said, just love on them. That they are in some ways, you are in some ways, more axiomatic, more the center of stuff that is going on all over the world than you ever have been. The growth we are seeing is extraordinary and in some places explosive. 3 churches just blossomed up like mushrooms from existing Christian leadership, deep Christian leadership in Cuba just in the last couple of weeks. And Cuba. And I said to Nancy, I said that we have beaten all of American industry into Cuba.
So again, CU General Conference 2016, July 4th through the 8th. Please register, continue to register early, so that we can make this a real powerful unity experience. Thank you.
Is it me now? Okay. All right now. Thank you, Reverend Clinton and Reverend Onetta, for that. That was very, very, very helpful. Thank you. All right, so as we prepare our hearts, we're going to keep going. What time is lunch? That's the important question. Noon. Oh, okay. All right, we're going to keep going. So, we're going to talk a little bit about spiritual types. Has anyone heard about the book Discover Your Spiritual Types by Corinne Ware? Okay, so this will be just another quick review, or kind of my southern spin on spiritual types. Okay, we're going to get to lunch earlier than we thought. Praise the Lord. Okay, just to review, spiritual temperament is how you know God versus how you talk about God. Do you know God through your intellect? Do you know God through your language? Or do you know God through your feelings? Do you talk about God in a concrete form, or do you talk about God almost in an abstract process? And so for those of you who are very familiar, there's the spirituality wheel on the screen there. I think so. I'm not sure. Can we make that wheel a little bit bigger? Or do you want the whole thing a little bit bigger, Lucia? The wheel. Well, there you go. And basically, for those of you who are not familiar, Corinne Ware basically talks about spirituality in 4 main levels. There's type 1, and we kind of go clockwise. Is that clockwise? Yeah, clockwise. The head spirituality, the heart spirituality, the mystic spirituality, or what we define in MCC, knowing we have our own language, as a visionary activist spirituality. And basically what those four types talk about is basically how do you know God, and then how do you talk about God? And then each one has a defining characteristic of both. So the first characteristic is type 1, the head spiritual types around, and this is, again, we're going to talk about these spiritual types around programming, okay? I know that you've already had a good, lengthy discussion about spiritual types before. We're going to talk about it basically around programming. Type 1, view God as concrete, concrete, concrete. I call these the people, primarily because they're always thinking, they're always looking for content within the language of what we do, within the bulletins, within the hymnals. They're examining the language that we use in worship and in spiritual classes and in programming. They value study groups, they seek guidance from scripture and sermons, and they just love a good book study. It doesn't matter if it is Let Your Life Speak by Parker Palmer, or one of those things that are sitting in our pews as we speak called the Bible. That's the book for me. And the head people are like, you're going to finish the song, ain't you? You know, those are the head spiritual types. So content is primary. It's a primary group. Spiritual growth. If you are a head spiritual type, or if you're identifying with someone who is a spiritual type 1, which are the head people, head spiritual types, you value reading, you value journaling, you value specific forms of meditation, like you're going to focus on the Beatitudes, you're going to focus on the Creator's Prayer, you're going to focus on basic things that are fundamental to our faith. And they always want to stretch to sense, we have to stretch a little bit to sense their interior connection with God. So when we plan good, high-quality programming to include head spiritual types, the in your congregation, make sure you have good scripture study, Bible study. Aunt Eula May and Uncle Harold, they're head spiritual types because they go to the Bible study. Anybody that wants some good content, some good scriptural grounding. Type 2 are the heart people. This is where most of us fit in. And by the way, every single time I've done a discussion on spiritual types, by large, overwhelming majority of people in MCC are heart spiritual types. It just happens to be that way. So does anybody identify as a head spiritual type or type 1? Okay, you like your content, you like the organization, you like the structure of things. There we go. Okay. Characteristics of type 2. These are the heart spiritual types, the people. That's me, I'm one of them. We share the same view as God as type 1s, but we experience God differently. We experience God through feeling and not necessarily through our intellect. We may have some intellectual stuff, but yet we're also the kind of people that are like, now isn't that sweet? We look at puppies on TVs and we're like, oh, isn't that special? You know, we cry at Titanic and stuff like that. Type 2 is all through heart and is combined with some concreteness. But we like to have experienced God through our feeling, but we talk about God in more concrete form. So we still have that concrete language. We value that concrete language. We like to feel good when worship is finished. We love to make sure that worship is a good, uplifting experience. We don't necessarily care about the holy, 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 but if I leave knowing that I've seen Jesus, then that's all that matters. I'm sorry, I just went Baptist. I apologize. I tend to do that. We emphasize evangelism by using mass media such as television, radio. We create our own networks. We love music. Again, I think music creates spirituality for people that words may not. I think that's a good heart language. When people who are more head spiritual types, they may say, but we got to focus on the sermon. Granted, yes. Prayer is also with words, but when we pray more extemporaneously. We like to make sure that every base is covered. You know, we're the ones that when you say, oh, bless the food, 10 minutes later, you're still wondering, are they ever going to finish? Because we want to make sure that every base is covered. So if you are doing programming for these types of people, stories of faith, witness or testimony is one. Spiritual autobiography, was that Palm Springs? Was that y'all's group? Y'all did the spiritual autobiography, spiritual writing? Okay, fantastic heart-related type program, okay? Anything related to spiritual autobiography or spiritual disciplines. We have to be stretched to risk new experiences, and we have to trust that God is with them on our journey as a nurturing rather than a punitive parent. Okay, so we need to make sure that we connect spiritually with other people through their testimonies and through their stories, and knowing that God is in the center of everything that we do. So good programming is around just kind of stories and sharing with each other our lives and how MCC means to us. Are there any, who are the heart spiritual types based on this right here? Are there any heart people? Okay, now I'm seeing some hands. The heart, a little bit of both, that's fine. You know, heart spiritual types. I'm definitely a heart spiritual type. I'm one of these pastors that I will be speaking from the pulpit, and all of a sudden the Spirit hits me just right, and next thing you know, I'm crying. Well, that wasn't on my page. You know, that wasn't on my manuscript, but that's just one of those things. And then you go off into stories. Characteristics of type 3 are the mystics. We have the heads, which is the the hearts, which are the aw, and then the mystics are the aw. Yeah, see, yeah, good intonation, I thought. Huh? Yes, I'll be glad to. Thank you. For type 3s, instead of a lot of times these people who identify as mystic spiritual types are ones that want to hear from God. They're the ones that are excited. Instead of speaking to God, they want to hear from God. They want to open themselves up to God's communication in a way that's just unfathomable. Okay. The aim of their spirituality is a true union with the holy. They want to really embrace their spiritual selves by being vessels and really just kind of using the vessel language and just really wanting to open themselves up to what God is telling them. The whole idea that God is still speaking, and they believe that firmly, that God is still speaking to us. People attracted to this type are by nature very contemplative. They're very introspective. They're more inward in their spiritual focus. They may not jump, shout, and do everything in church. They may just sit very quietly in a peaceful like meditation and just enjoy hearing what the Spirit is telling them. Communion, we had an experience with communion where, as you can tell, I like to talk a lot. I am quite extroverted. But some of the people who identify as more mystic types are ones that when I did communion and I did it silently, they got so much more meaning out of that. I just lifted the bread and did this, and raised the cup. They found that very enlightening because it spoke to them in a very quiet, very introspective manner. These people also believe that God is unnameable, that God is just vast, God is beyond words. The word God doesn't fully describe God, so to speak, that God is just a very vast, creative entity in our lives. And then oftentimes type 3s feel like they will fit in more with the Eastern religion, Eastern thoughts, Eastern ideology. They will fit more with Buddhism. You'll see these people in yoga, meditation. These people will also be interested in comparative religion between Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity. They will also be more engaged with learning about the different types of meditation. And so type 3s need permission to retreat and seek solitude. If they do a labyrinth, if you do a labyrinth at your church, or if you're able to do that, that is a great way to get the type 3s active in your programming, to do things like that that's more introspective, more learning. They become comfortable with who they are, and then they are more likely to laugh than any other group, according to St. Francis of Assisi. Okay. Where are my type 3s? Is there a type 3 out here? Okay, there's a bunch of type 3s. Fabulous. So it's also good to see, for those of you who are in your individual churches, who the lay leaders are and what types they have, so that way we can begin programming, because you're just a microcosm of who your individual congregations are, right? And so while you're doing these programs to really, for your lay leaders and also for your entire congregation. Type 4 is your, Corinne Ware calls them the kingdom, but again, going back to MCC in our language, we use visionary activists. And these are the these are the steppers, the raws, the people who want to commit social justice. They are single-minded with a deeply focused, almost crusading type of spirituality. These are the people who get so excited when they say that there's going to be a march on Washington. These are the people who are going to be excited about the AIDS walk that's coming up in October. Is that right? Is it coming up in October, LA? These are the people who are so excited about a commitment to social justice and social action. Their idea is to obey God and to witness to God's coming reign. And they have a passion around certain focal points, or they have passions around certain ideas and certain movements. They tend to be assertive, sometimes aggressive, because they have a very yes, I'm looking at you. They have a very single-minded focus. Love you. They have a very single-minded focus on what exactly they want, and to witness God's coming reign, they feel that they need to have it their mission to eradicate hunger. Period. Huh? Am I straying too far? Okay, I'm sorry. They equate prayer with action. They like to put the hands and the heart and the feet to action. That words don't mean a thing unless you ain't got that swing. They want to make sure that they are out in the community creating social change in our world. They have a vision of the ideal, and they want to make sure that everybody knows that. So if you want to include spiritual growth for this type, what I would believe would be great would be to really add programs that relate to social action and change. For instance, there is a great video, I think it's free, a great video called The Line, which talks about the poverty line and what the poverty line looks like. And it's about an hour film, which only discusses what the line is and who is affected by it. So from there, you can really have a deep, enlightening, enriching conversation on what the line looks like to our congregation, and then what can we do about it to create some kind of social action and social change. And that is where the type 4s really resonate. Programs that educate and build awareness around certain topics. Biblical attitudes. We did a class called Reaffirming Micah 6:8. And then we had people demonstrate what Micah 6:8 looks like, who is affected by Micah 6:8. What is required of you but to love God, justice, and walk humbly with God. So that's type 4. Are there any type 4s around? Lucia, please raise your hand. Thank you. And these 4, and again, I went through them very fast, and the reason why I did is because you have all 4 types in your congregation. You have all 4 types in your congregation. And by limiting your programming to a Bible study 1 night a week, you're not reaching 3/4 of that circle. You're not reaching 3/4 of that circle. But if you begin to include things such as Monday night, you're doing a class on the poverty line. Tuesday night, you add it. Now, I know that this is some smaller churches, you may not have that luxury, and that's okay. But if you had a program on, we're going to talk about the line one week, and then the next week we did a 4-week session on Philippians that reaches the head people. The heart, we're going to do a spiritual autobiography for 8 weeks, or 6, or however long your program was. And then we're going to do a 3-week session on walking the labyrinth. You have really just initiated all 4 types in your congregation in one way, shape, form, or fashion. And then you included a potluck, 2 or 3 potlucks. And that's high quality programming because you are making an intentional effort to reach out to your congregation that may or may not identify with your own spiritual type. Cool? Are there any questions on these components? Like I said, I know I went through them really fast. How's Northern California and Hawaii doing? I will do that. I will make a commitment to that. Yes.
So looking at the family and pastor as far as church sizes there, they would attract a certain maybe type of temperament. It's kind of the cart or the horse. I mean, do you create a program for members who are not in the church to try to draw them? Or how do you kind of continue to break what the next step is without limited resources?
Yeah. I don't know if I can repeat the question.
So looking at different church sizes. So looking at the dynamic of different church sizes, particularly family or pastor church sizes, and it draws usually a certain maybe type of individual based upon the group that had been attracted to that particular size at that moment. How does a church, from your perspective or maybe some insights, create additional programming with limited resources to attract a new group, that learning style, that spiritual temperament that is not there yet?
So let me make sure that I understand. You're talking about a smaller church that may have 1, maybe 2 overwhelming types.
Yeah, types or temperaments already there, yep.
That are already there. And so the question then, if I understand correctly, is do you program for types that are not there, or do you program with them in mind, or do you program with people? I think it's a both and thing. I think you always want to, you're doing something right already by having an intended audience there. If you have 20, 25, 30 people who are head and heart spiritual types, that's fantastic. You do programming for them.
There was a request from the Northern California folks if you could please repeat the examples of the types of programming and the way each type the way to engage each type in a week of programming.
Okay, I'll be glad to do that. If they can just bear with me just for a minute so I can finish this question. Yes, always do programming for the groups that are already there. And at the same time, understanding that if we are too head or heart centered, then we can go outside that there are issues when you go outside the circle. So when you do something for the head spiritual types and you do too much of it without bringing them to a more of an inward focus, then they can go out. So my thing is to continue including those programmings to give them the foundation. But then you need to make sure that those other 2 types are covered to achieve some kind of wholeness within the congregation. Because if you only have head or heart spiritual types and they go outside the circle, then it becomes problematic. So you need to create something for them to have some kind of balance in there, more abstract in this particular example program. Does that answer your question? Great. So the request is, can you say that one more time, Reverend Torrey?
Request was if you could please repeat the examples for the type of programming and how to engage each type in a week of programming.
Okay, I can do that. So let's say there are 7 days in a week. And if you have resources, again, money, let's just talk about idealism, pie in the sky kind of thing. To reach head spiritual types, you would want to do more content-focused courses. such as, yes. That's what I'm trying to get to. So head spiritual types would be biblical-centered stuff, whereas you may want to include programs on the line, which reaches out to the visionary activist, or type 4. You may also want to include something about walking a labyrinth or a class on meditation. That would reach a type 3. Type 2 would be you would want to do something on spiritual autobiography or providing connections. That would be one night. Or you could do a class on the Beatitudes to really reach the head spiritual types. It's really, really simple to do. And again, you may have the resources, you may not. You always want to include something to incorporate those 4 types. Did that answer the question? For the first one? I thought I did all 4 of them. Okay, yes. Okay. Okay. Yes, Reverend Dan.
In this day of wanting to be so, get together, despite we're being so busy, more groups are meeting virtually like we are, because we can't afford even to, travel like we used to. And also there's traffic, LA traffic, San Diego traffic, Las Vegas traffic, Palm Springs traffic, at certain hours when you want people to come to a meeting. Your thoughts on the validity of virtual meeting as opposed to being face-to-face?
Oh, absolutely. I think there are, if the individual church can provide a means to do virtual programming, then I'd say go for it. Because again, traffic in any metropolitan city in this day and age is horrific at best. So there are 2 thoughts. If you're not able to do virtual, you can set it at a certain time where people can be as reached to get away from the traffic and dinner and things like that. Another thing is do simple social media things like Facebook. We did a program revolving around Facebook, where Facebook was the medium, and they met maybe once every 6 weeks in that 6-week time frame, but they did most of their discussion via Facebook. They created a Facebook page, they posted discussion questions on that page, and they had the discussion and the program around a medium such as Facebook. And it doesn't limit itself to Facebook, but I think virtually in this day and age is a vital way to continue your programming that can continue to engage, even though people may or may not. And the reality is that people in our congregation are not able to get to a 7 o'clock, discussion on the prophets. They're just not able to due to X, Y, and Z reasons. But doing it virtually could really help involve as many people as possible. The issue, though, with virtual is how do you track that? And I think that's a question that we can have when we discuss resources. Does that answer your question? Great. Yes, ma'am.
In our church in the Coachella Valley, we have an e-blast weekly that the pastor and the deacon get together and send out. And I think that answers a lot of the different types of spirituality because they address the events going on, like Bible study, but also there's a devotion or a meditation verse there. And also the pastor will put in something about what's going on at the churches around the world. So there's the action end of it. So I mean, it may not be like the person on the other end is talking back to him, but certainly comments come in. but at least they know what we're doing, and we're trying to reach people in different ways.
Absolutely. And I thank you for that, because I think that is the e-blast that y'all have, according to what you had just said, is a great way to keep those spiritual types engaged and inviting. And I think that kind of opens the door for different conversations on different spiritual levels. That's great. That's great. Thank you. Any other questions? Andy in the back.
How about conflict in a church along spiritual types?
Do
you
churches
see
have conflict?
Never.
I didn't think they did. Does that happen? Do churches have conflict? So what can you speak more to your question, Andy? What are you trying to mean as far as, do you want to do conflict around
Please go up.
So
conflict around
so like
spiritual-
programming your church, sometimes you might have some stronger personalities who lobby for this or that. It meets the needs of a certain type of person, but doesn't necessarily meet the needs of the whole congregation. And then when you try to work with that person, they get really angry because you're stopping them. You're holding them back. That's a type 4 person, by the way. Usually, in my experience, my type 4 person that I'm thinking of gets very upset when we want to slow down so that we make sure that we include other people. And we've had a lot of drama in the past.
I can tell.
And not just with this particular type 4 personality, but the head personalities and the heart personalities and the type 3. It's happened, and we've lost people as a result.
Yeah, that is a good problem to address. And 3 words, I don't know. But I will tell you that because then that kind of brushes you away from spiritual types and talks about individual behaviors and personalities, which I think is a different level that we're talking about here. Jude.
Just wanted to offer that I'm a 4. So 4s are really into causes. Inclusivity is a cause. There's ways of approaching me and saying, whoa, you're being, really dogmatic here. And if you'd calm down and think about, we need to include everybody, you'll see your way is a little bit easier. So just a tip I use and people use with me. Thanks.
There you go. Thank you, Jude, for that.
I think part of the beauty of looking at these 4 different types is that if we are able to be intentional about each of them, and it is harder, particularly in smaller congregations, that can eliminate some of those those frustrations that are there. Because part of what I hear in that is, wait, but what about my needs? And I'm a different type, and the programming's all this way. So I think that speaks well to what you've brought.
And again, it goes back to the idea of achieving balance. You definitely want that particular type 4 person to be included as a part of the conversation. And at the same time, understand that there's also different programming that could reach different levels. Reverend Clinton.
I'm enormously grateful to the music ministry as a way of pulling together the needs of different types and being able to set a tone which reflects the spiritual base, not just denominational affiliation before coming to MCC, but also the spiritual needs of different groups of people. And I think, it's wonderful if you are blessed with somebody who clearly takes that as a part of the responsibilities. I am. Ken. He's being coy. But if not, then it's something that you need to consciously think about when setting the musical tone in the church.
I agree. Thank you for that. Your words are always insightful and meaningful. Well, yes. Look at you being coy now all of a sudden.
Yeah, I'm thinking more about programs that can help introduce these types to each other. Because there's also, there's a subtle undertone of your type really isn't as spiritual as my type. Or your type, y'all ain't saved.
Mm-hmm.
You know. How do we create programs that not only introduce the types to each other, but get them to maybe even taste each other's style, appreciate it more?
And that's a really big, and I'm going to get to this post-lunch. It's important to not just introduce a type of programming for one spiritual type, but that's why you include programming for, you know, a visionary activist such as yourself, if I may say so, you know, to also include some of the biblical examples, to not just introduce, we're going to go march on Washington because we're mad as hell about something. Is that okay? Did I wouldn't offend anybody, but okay. Now I'm getting preachy, I apologize. You know, where you're mad as fire about something, you're also combining the biblical examples, which will get the head spiritual types, and then they're riveted by your testimony in this one class. So now you're getting the heart spiritual types involved, and then we're praying about this together and listening to God tell us what we need to do. So now you got the mystic spiritual types. You have that all in one course because you want to march on Washington because you're mad as hell about something. And you can include those components to have them have that open dialogue, because as you say, you never want to compartmentalize these spiritual types. I've just introduced these spiritual types to say this is to recognize this is where I am, this is what feels good for me, but I also understand that I ain't the only one in the room. So when I'm not the only one in the room, how do I deal with that? And make it work. You can do programming for, you know, you can include all 4 spiritual types into one program, just based on what I just said, based on just one example. It's Amy.
Yeah. I think I figured this out before and figured it out again. I happen to be more of a mystical type, and to me, what really speaks to me is interfaith, where we're doing things with synagogues and Buddhist temples and mosques and, you know, that sort of thing, because that's the kind of God I believe in. I don't believe in a God just of my church or my denomination or even my religion. I believe in a God of the universe. Mm-hmm. So to me, interfaith would really get a lot of, well, it should get all of them, but it would definitely get me as a mystic.
And I think that's one of the things that, as someone who is very heart-centered, that's a particular challenge for me, you know, because I grew up with a very strong head spiritual type. You know, I grew up Southern Baptist, so I had a very strong head spiritual type, so the mystic side of me kind of struggles a little bit. But then when I finally understood that part of a mystic spiritual type is to discover the vastness of a creator in non-specific language, and then you begin to pull other faith traditions in along with this, I'm now engaging people who may not have previously been engaged before. We did a 3-week course on Thich Nhat Hanh's Living Buddha, Living Christ, and the people that were in this particular 3-week session have not darkened the door or even participated in hardly any programming whatsoever. But I get those people to be a part of Living Buddha, Living Christ, and then I said, and now we're going to look at Buddhism 101. They are all over on that like gravy on a biscuit. I mean, they are engaged. So I think we can't go at this, it's a me versus you thing. I think one of the biggest things that I've understood is that if we compare and discuss and keep the dialogue open, then that really, really helps, especially people who identify as mystics, who don't necessarily say, well, I'm a Christian and God's so much more. That really, really, we picked up on something there. Sure, I have all the time in the world.
I just have a suggestion because of my history in the business world, which sometimes doesn't intersect well with the church. But I think anytime you're setting up any new system, you should set up criteria to evaluate whether you're successful, and part of that addresses the balance. So you should go ahead and decide, we're going to look at quarterly with our leadership, how many programs do we need for the type 4s? How many do we need for the type 2s based on the demographics of the church? And then you go from there and begin to build a larger system. But you have to be self-reflective for it to be something that works to add to all the things that you're doing. So having that criteria up front.
And thank you for that, and thank you for lifting that up, because when we come back from lunch, what we're going to do is really engage our conversation about systems and resources and assessment and about the logistical pieces of that. That it's all good talking in the nether regions of up here, but how are we going to make it work?
And that's complementary to my questions. With this, is there a structured assessment? So if a church wanted to engage this, do an evaluation of their board, find out where those spiritual types are, and then look at understanding self first. So if we better understand the space we're coming from, and I think a great example about the Southern Baptist, the head theology and understanding of Scripture, and how it's a stretch to go into other quadrants.
Yes.
If we understand ourself better and use that self language, I'm coming from this temperament or this style, have we addressed X? Do we have those other lenses? So is there a structured assessment to evaluate from?
There is. Corinne Ware has it in her book. And the book is Discover Your Spiritual Types. And her assessment is in her book. And so it is a very good assessment. I intentionally did not put one in here primarily because I wasn't sure on the time that I had.
Brad? We have this assessment. It was out at the last network gathering.
Oh.
So if you look at your materials from that gathering, it's in there. If you need it, we'll put it up on our Google Drive, the same place you downloaded your materials for this workshop. We can just resubmit those, and everybody should have them.
I'm hearing that would be a good idea.
Also, something that we've done here, which is in the same alignment with that, we went through a program called Spiritual Locations, and it's all the different locations, which also identifies the different personalities and the different personas of individuals and what their spiritual needs are. So by having that, you can gear and guide your programming in that direction as well, to say, well, I'm dealing with someone who is spiritual in this way or spiritual in this way. And that's another, I guess, another piggyback or add-on to that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I actually gave the spiritual assessment to my congregation after we did the last. Gave the spiritual assessment test that Jude brought us at the last meeting last year to our congregation. And it was very useful. One of the things that we found, though, was a lot of people didn't fall into one bucket. They actually found themselves into 2 or 3. So that also was an opportunity for us in programming to, if you do something that's to 2 or 3 buckets, you might not get all 4, but you might get 2 or 3 of them, and that will pull.
Which really speaks to the need of not just one person. I think the idea, the goal, is to make sure you have all 4 spiritual types in some way, shape, form, or fashion in your life. Here's what, again, going back to food. I have a home. I eat at home all the time. But there are occasions when I want to go out to dinner somewhere else, or someone's invited me to their home for dinner. So I dabble there, and I dabble at the restaurant, but I also come home. So the idea for me is that to understand your own, what if there's one spiritual type that you fit in the most, that you fit more comfortably in, and understanding and acknowledging that you may have pieces of your own spiritual self can fit into different types as well. Although there may be one that you fit in with the most, there are different types that you can resonate with. The idea is, and forgive me, I'm going to use Jesus language for a minute, is that I believe that Jesus incorporated all 4 of these spiritual types in his life, in his teaching, in his ministry, and who he was. And so I think the idea is for us to get as many pieces of the spiritual types in our own spiritual life as much as possible, because then that's when we can really achieve that spiritual balance, that wholeness, as much as possible. And in our local congregations as well. That's when we really, really focus on intentional spiritual growth. Again, because I don't think the spiritual type should be compartmentalized. Speaking mystical language, I don't want to put God in a box, therefore we shouldn't be putting ourselves in boxes either.
The materials have been posted now, and you can get them on the Facebook page. There's a link.
The materials have been posted now, and you can put them on a link.
MCC Southwestern U.S. Network Group is our Facebook page.
Great. Are there any other questions? How's Northern California and Hawaii doing? Okay, at the moment, fabulous, fabulous. Okay, so I want us to do a little small group exercise before lunch. Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. So you should have a handout. If you don't, I have a few extras. We can make it possible, I'm sure. So based on what you know about your spiritual type, based on what we just talked about, and the spiritual type of your congregation that you perceive, I want you to look at the assessment grid for programming for type for your congregation. And we will be looking at I'm finding the example. Bear with me just a minute. You'll be looking at a grid called My Current Programming Assessment. Does anybody not have a sheet like this? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Can we have one in each group, and we can try to make copies or put it online or do something? It's called My Current Programming Assessment. It'll be a 2-page document. If not, we can make it available somehow, some way. As long as you have one per group, that will be fine. Okay. Okay, that'll work. And I also have some copies as well. Now, we will be spending the most of our time with this. And what I'd like for you to do, and if your church has an abundance of people, I would recommend kind of splitting up into groups of 3 or 4, maybe, just to kind of help with the time. And all you're doing is you're just going to look at the programs that you have, and you're going to put them on the grid. Bible study, head spiritual type. Spiritual autobiography, that'll be a heart spiritual type. Walking a labyrinth, mystic. Or, talking on the poverty and homelessness, that will be a visionary activist. So spend time with this, and there's no right or wrong answers. This is just consensual discussion between your groups, and we'll just spend time doing that. So get into small groups, and then flesh out the programs that you have just listed earlier this morning. Let that be your guide to filling out this grid. And we will be spending quite a bit of time in our small groups. we have extra copies if someone wants another set.
I think heart brings them together, but I think they also sprout all the other stuff. That, exactly. Yeah. So they come together with heart and they shoot out a little vision. Yeah, exactly. That's spiritual location is kind of head.
Spiritual location is all four. Because it connects to others.
But I think it doesn't start spiritual location start in the same way that affinity would start in the heart and sprout out to the other stuff. Doesn't spiritual location start in the head and sprout out to other stuff? It does.
But it also brings
It starts in the head, but it encourages looking at the other parts.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean.
And the other parts of who you are may fit in that.
Right.
Just wanted to make sure that you also know that the second page is a list of thought-provoking, self-guiding, good, reflective questions. Make sure you answer those as well.
The training happens in the programming to get you to be, to know how to design it. And that goes back to leadership development. The thing is, we have this much glaze, honey glaze.
Okay, I'll give you about another 2 minutes, and we can wrap up this conversation. And for you folks at Northern California, make sure you're ready as well in 2 minutes. And Hawaii. Okay, so being in MCC, plans have changed and lunch has arrived. Praise the good Lord. So at this moment, we're going to break for lunch, and before we break, Reverend Tori has a few announcements, and then we'll pray us out. Is Jesus calling somebody? Maybe
Is that the prayer?
All right now. All right.
So hopefully we have all of the Northern California folks back and the Southern California folks back. I'll pray us into lunch, and then I'll give us instructions on how to maintain lunch here. Just for both groups, we are going to take about 95 minutes for lunch. Both Northern and Southern California will break up between the clergy group and then the laity group. And I'm sure up in Northern California, they'll give the same instructions on how they're going to break up as well. And then we will reconvene at 1:30. So try to be back in the sanctuary or up in Northern California, wherever you are, at 1:30 so we can start back on time. Right, and I'll explain that once we pray. So if we have everybody together, let us pray so we can go to lunch. Gracious God, we thank you for bringing all of us here today, and we thank you for the food that has been prepared and those who have prepared it for us. Continue to nourish our bodies and our minds and give us the strength, give us the nourishment. At the same time, let us convene with one another to have good conversation during the lunch hour and to come back ready for a great afternoon. I ask this